Until the War of 1982, the rainy, windswept Falkland Islands were a lowly, almost forgotten remnant of the old British Empire. Although they have the appearance of being small and insignificant, their territory is highly contested and debated, and the cause of a war. In this doco, we will discover the past of these islands and explore the reason behind the conflict itself. We will investigate the different perspectives of a war and raise the main question: who do the Falkland Islands truly belong to? Falkland Islands comprise of two main islands, West Falkland and East Falkland, and about 776 small islands. They are situated in the South Atlantic, 483 kilometers from South America and 1,365 kilometers north of the Atlantic Circle. These islands are mostly hilly and have a climate which varies from 24 degrees Celsius to minus 5 degrees in the winter. As the year of 2000, there was a population of 2,826 permanent residents, of whom 1,750 lived in the capital, Port Stanley. The majority are of British descent, although there are a few immigrants from South America, Chile in particular. There is a low population density, with the majority of people living on farms and ranches in rural settings. Stanley is the only urban centre. Its architecture is in British character. The Falklands are governed by a colony of the United Kingdom, with a military junta. The highest political officer is the governor, who is appointed to represent the British monarchy. The island's ownership has been a matter of controversy, as it has been claimed by the French, British, Spaniards, and Argentinians at various points. The Falklands were first occupied on the west side by the French in 1764, which was passed on to Spain in 1765. The British took control of Eastern Ireland by 1816. Both countries had removed their own military posts, which caused the Falklands to have no permanent residents. Argentina tried to claim power over the Falkland Islands, but Britain seized the islands in 1833, expelling a few remaining Argentine residents, and since then constantly discounting Argentina's claims. In early 1982, the Argentine military junta led by Lieutenant General Leopoldo Galleriti gave up on long-running negotiations with Britain and instead launched an invasion of the islands. The decision to invade was political, as the junta believed that the recovery of the islands would unite Argentina behind the government, with enthusiasm. They began to prepare their invasion, but a dispute erupted on British-controlled South Georgia Island, where Argentine salvage workers had raised the Argentine flag 1,300 kilometers east of the Falkland Islands. Naval forces were quickly put into motion, and the war began swiftly. Argentine troops invaded the Falklands on the 2nd of April. Rapidly overcoming the small defences of British Marines at the capital, they obeyed orders not to inflict any British casualties, despite losses to their own units. The next day, Argentine Marines seized the associated island of South Georgia. By late April, Argentina had stationed more than 10,000 troops on the Falklands, although most of these were poorly trained conscripts, and they were not supplied with proper food, clothing, and shelter for the upcoming winter. As expected, the Argentine people reacted favorably, with large crowds gathering in front of the presidential palace to demonstrate support for the military. In response to the invasion, the British government under Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher declared a war zone for 320 kilometers around the Falkland Islands. On the 25th of April, British forces sank the submarine ARA Santa Fe near South Georgia Island, shortly before troops liberated the island. 5 days later, bombers strike the runway at Port Stanley and radar facilities in the area. That same day, Harriers attacked various targets as well as shot down 3 Argentine aircraft. As the runway at Port Stanley was too short for modern fighters, the Argentine Air Force was forced to fly from the mainland, which placed them at a disadvantage through the conflict. While cruising west of the Falkland Islands on the 2nd of May, the submarine HMS Conqueror spotted the light cruiser ARA General Belgrano. Conqueror fired 3 torpedoes, hitting the World War II vintage Belgrano twice and sinking it. Sunk outside the war zone by a British submarine, 323 members of General Belgrano's crew died in the incident, and over 700 men were rescued from the open ocean. Despite cold seas and stormy weather, the losses from General Belgrano totaled nearly half of the Argentine deaths in the whole Falklands conflict, and the loss of the ship hardened the stance of the Argentine government. 2 days later, on 4th of May, the RGs had their revenge. They sank the destroyer HMS Sheffield with an Exocet missile, killing 20 crew members and severely injuring 24 others. The ship was abandoned several hours later, devastated and deformed by the fires that continued to burn for 6 more days. She finally sank outside the maritime exclusion zone on the 10th of May. The night of the 21st of May, the British moved into Falkland Sound and began landing British forces at San Carlos Water on the northwest coast of East Falkland. The landings had been preceded by the SAS, Britain's elite unit. The SAS raided on nearby Pebble Island airfield. When the landings had finished, approximately 4,000 men had been put ashore. Over the next week, the ships supporting the landings were hit by a hard flow of low-flying Argentine aircraft using the Exocet missiles. The sound soon doubled. Bomb alley as HMS Ardent, HMS Antelope, and HMS Coventry all sustained hits and were sunk, as was MV Atlantic Conveyor with a cargo of helicopters and supplies. On the 27th of May, 600 men outfought over 1,000 Argies around Darwin and Goose Green, ultimately forcing them to surrender. After a tough struggle that lasted all night and into the next day, the British won the battle. In all, 17 British and 47 Argentine soldiers were killed, and 961 Argentine troops were taken prisoner. A few days later, British commanders defeated Argentine commanders on Mount Kent. In early June, an additional 5,000 British troops arrived, and while some of these troops were disembarking at Bluff Cove and Fitzroy, the Transvaal was attacked, killing 56 of them.